in this step, I'm going to do a couple different things. First off, I'm going to make it so that these problems are only generated when you click the start button. So you show up to the page and you see no problems. They're only generated when you click the start button. That's to hypothetically prevent people from cheating and looking at all the answers before the problem has even started. So I'm just going to pretty simply copy this entire thing right here and then put it inside this start timer guy. There we go. All right, so now you show up to the page, you click start, and bam, all the problems are generated for you. Let me make sure they're still working. They sure seem to be. Okay, so I'll get this one wrong. All right, awesome. So this looks pretty good. All right, so that's nice. But now I'd like to address this issue of it going down to under 0 seconds. It should not be able to do that. So just to demonstrate what's going on, and just so I don't have to actually wait for 60 seconds, I'm just going to scooch this down to 2 seconds, make it a really hard game. All right, so what I'm going to need to do here is do something when the time runs out. So I'm going to go down to this countdown function, and I'm going to do something like if time left equals 0. Okay, now I need to figure out what to do. Well, for one thing, I'm going to stop the timer. So in order to do that, I'm going to need a way of getting this timing function right here. So I'm going to put this var timing function right there. And then I'm going to say timing function equals set interval, blah, 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 blah. The reason I'm not doing var timing function in here is because when you var something, it only exists inside the function in which you created it. So if I did it in here, then the timing function would only exist inside this big function right there and not inside countdown. I want to be able to access countdown inside, I want to be able to access timing function inside countdown, so I'm putting my var up here. And now what I can do in here is I can say clear interval timing function. So let's see if that worked. I'll know it worked if this gets to 0 and then it doesn't count down past it. And it doesn't. So I can see that that's working appropriately. The other thing I'm going to need to do is I want to re-enable the start button so that people can restart the game. So I'm going to select that button. I believe it was called start timer. I'm actually going to use remove prop. So that removes a property from a particular element. So let's see if that worked. Now if I click on this and wait 2 seconds, there. Now you can see that it is no longer grayed out. It's working just fine. Okay, cool. So I have that. Let's see. What else am I going to need to do here? Well, there are a couple things. When I click on this, this doesn't appear to change, and this timer starts right up where it left off. And that doesn't seem right. I also have a feeling that there are now, well, nope, my feeling was wrong. So we'll just go off with that. I'm going to need to reset the timer back to 60 seconds. So I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to say var time to start with. That should be 60. And then time left, when this page first loads, is going to be time to start with. And then down here, when the timer runs out, I'm going to change time left back to time to start with. Although this may actually make more sense putting it in here. When you click the start button, that is what sets the time left back to the time to start with. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to set that back down to 2 just so I don't have to wait 60 seconds again. When it gets to 0, the timer stops. When I click it again, I hope it goes back to 2. And it did, but there's nothing in here saying it should actually show 2, so I need to copy that, put that back down there. All right, so now when I click this, it goes back down to 0, and now it shows 2 right from the start. Okay, awesome. So the other thing I'm going to need to do is I want to replace all of these math problems in here so it's not just reusing the same ones because that's not very helpful. So I am going to first, I'm going to clear the board. So there are a couple different ways of doing this. One is to just set the HTML of the board to an empty string. So when I click on that, now it takes all the HTML on the board and it replaces it with an empty string. Now you might be wondering why it's not generating 60 more of these guys. That's because there wasn't anything saying that the problem number should go back to 0. So I need to say problem number is 0. Without that, when I click on the button again, problem number is still 60. And so there's, let's see, this is all while problem number 60 in this case is less than total problems, which is also 60. So there's nothing telling it to restart. So I'm going to take this guy, set it back down to 0. And now when I click that, there we go. Looks pretty good. I'll click it again. Bam, looks awesome. Okay, so 2 seconds, that's not a whole lot to deal with. But one more change I want to make is that when the time runs out, I'm also going to disable all of these different inputs down here. So I'm going to go down there and say input prop disabled true. So when time runs out, you can see all these guys getting grayed out. I can no longer type anything into them. And then, sort of the opposite of that, well, actually, no, I think that's it. Yep, there we go. So now 15, blah, 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 all looks very nice. Can't do anything else anymore. Let me change this back up to 60, make sure it all seems to be working properly. Okay, so 4, 8, blah, blah, blah. Looks pretty good. Maybe I'll do something a little bit less, but still manageable. What I want to test is I want to make sure that I can go in here, and then when the timer runs out, I can start it all over again. And it starts right back where I left off. So there's one thing I forgot. The number of correct answers didn't go back down to 0. So that's one more thing to do. So I'm going to go in here and say that dot so far should be 0. Oops. I should actually take this correct so far thing, set that back to 0, and now I should do so far just like I did right here. I'll just copy that entire line, just drop it right there. So let's see how this goes. 6, 9, yada yada. I'll get one wrong. Oops, I got it right. Oh well, that's okay. There, now I go back to 0. Looks pretty good. So to wrap up, I'll just change that back to 60. Time to start off with is 60. And now I think I'm done. So I'll make my commit. Resets entire board on click after time runs out. Good long commit message. And that's it. My next step, if I were to keep on going with this, would be to extract some more things out, just because I'm getting a lot of layers of indentation here, and usually that indicates that you could extract some things out. So we've seen two things that indicate things that can be extracted out. One, when lines repeat. Two, when you have lots of layers of indentation. That usually means you can extract things out into more functions and methods and keep everything looking a bit tidier. So that's what I would do next. The other thing I would do is add in some CSS. But I'm not going to do that right now. I am going to go ahead and call it a day. Thank you.